Namaste. Yesterday, I read the passage in the Gita from the 6th chapter, verse 9. He is a supreme yogi who gazes equally upon patrons, friends, enemies, strangers, peacemakers, those who cause trouble, relatives, the virtuous and the ungodly. Again, I smile at this passage which says, those who cause trouble, and then immediately follows that with relatives. Most of our troubles do come from relatives. Anyway, he who sees enemies, friends, everybody with an equal eye. Well, certainly you feel a fondness for those who are your friends, but in your own deeper self, you must see that all are equal. There must be this impersonal feeling that it is not I who am loving them. God loves them, God is in them. But with enemies, many people feel it's very difficult. And therefore, I'd like to stress this a little bit more. Because, in fact, they may be your enemies, but you don't have to feel yourself to be an enemy to you. And what I'm saying basically is that having people who hate you can be a great blessing. Don't feel why do they hate me? Don't feel why does this have to happen in life? Don't feel why am I so unfortunate? Don't expel from your life mentally those things which, as Master said, what comes of itself, let it come. When people treat you badly, don't run away from it. Don't expel it. Don't expunge it, because the more you do so, the more you resist, the more you find yourself on these waves of duality and caught in those waves in such a way that you get involved personally. So failure, success, these things should mean nothing to you. And there was one time somebody who lived in our Ananda community, and he was a fairly good artist, and so I wanted to encourage the arts, and so I let him live there, although he didn't contribute anything to the community in the way of helping to pay for our utilities and so on, which every member has to do. They all have to tithe a certain amount to keep the community going. He didn't do so, and I let him stay there anyway. I let him stay for 12 years, and all that time, every time I'd have a satsang, he would try to pose me a question that he wanted to embarrass me. And I just let it be and didn't worry about it, and I'd answer him politely. I remember one time I asked, why is it that when the clouds come in, it's always warmer, and when there are no clouds, then in wintertime, you'd think that cold would come in. He said, he explained it, that then the heat rises and you find it colder. Well, I thanked him. To me, it was interesting information. It may be obvious to you, may be obvious to everybody else, but I was sort of curious on the point. What I noticed with him was that his reaction was not only to answer me, but think, what a stupid dodo for not understanding that. I know it, why don't you? There was always this competition in his mind with me to try to show that I was stupid and he was clever, or that I was cleverer than he was cleverer than I. And finally, we had a new general manager there who talked to him and said, well, look, it isn't fair that you stay here without doing what everybody else does. You have to do your part. Either do it from now on, or decide that this is not your home. So he left. And then he came to me and he talked. And he spent over an hour telling me all my faults as he perceived them, and with great sort of pleasure in telling me how wrong I was about everything. And I just figured, well, what does it matter? It's just his opinion. I never answered him. I think this is important, that if people criticize you or condemn you or tell you all your faults and so on, let them rave. It doesn't matter to you. I just thanked him at the end of it, and he left. But then I wrote a song, and it's become one of my favorite songs. I'll sing it to you now. Though green summer fade and winter draw near, my Lord, in your presence I live without fear. Through tempest, through snows, through turbulent tide, the touch of your hand is my strength and my guide. I ask for no riches that death can destroy. I crave only thee, your love and your joy. I ask for no riches that death can destroy. I crave only thee, your love and your joy. The dancers must pass, the dancers will pass, the singing must end. I welcome the darkness with you for my friend. And so his diatribe against me was my great blessing, because it helped to reinforce in my mind that thought, I'm not living for people's approval, I'm not living for their acceptance, I'm not living for their friendship even, I'm living for God. And this is what Krishna is telling us here, to be even-minded at all times. And so he goes on to say, free from the hopes engendered by desire, and untouched by any craving for possession, the waves of feeling in his heart, controlled by yoga concentration, the yogi, retiring alone to a quiet place, should try to unite his little self with the Supreme Self. Now, does this mean you can only be a yogi if you can retire into a quiet place? No. You can retire into yourself even if you, well, as I said recently, a very highly advanced disciple, the most highly advanced disciple of my guru, had a wife who was totally unspiritual and uninterested, in fact slightly unbalanced. And he just would withdraw to the bathroom and lock the door, and he'd do his meditation there. She had another bathroom, so he was free to do it. But you can find some way of escaping from the turmoil of this world without going to the mountains. And another thing that the Gita says, that that which is day for the worldly man is night for the yogi, and that which is night for the yogi is day for the worldly man. This has deeper meanings, but also a superficial meaning is valid. That the yogi, in order to find peace, will stay up at night and sleep during the day when other people are active. And in fact, I remember I lived in San Francisco, and it was a section of San Francisco that was amazingly quiet. There were 2 blocks away, there was a very heavily traveled road. But somehow with the intervening trees and houses, I could hardly hear it. So at night, it's not as if the sound level was significantly reduced, because there wasn't much of a sound level. But I noticed it was much more peaceful then. And I realized the difference was that at night, people's minds were still, they were asleep. And so a yogi will often meditate at night because everybody's minds are still, everybody's mind is quiet, and the influence he receives from outside are not just those restless thoughts. I know that my guru one time, he used to tell us not to talk outside his window. He was up on the 3rd floor, but you'd call it 2nd floor in India. And he would tell us not to talk out there. And he explained to us one time, it isn't your words, but I catch your thoughts, and that I have to resist that when I'm writing. Well, this is true. Your thoughts, they emanate. You don't just have them in your head. Really, partly for other people's sake, you should have positive thoughts. And avoid those places where people think negatively. Don't think that it won't hurt you. If there are people in your home, in the house you live in the neighborhood you live in, that have negative thoughts, this will have an influence. So try to find, if you can, some peaceful neighborhood, some peaceful place. But what can you do if your own family is not that way? Well, you have to at least withdraw into yourself. Yes, if you can go to the mountains. Yes, if you can go to the hills. Yes, if you can go into the countryside or the desert. Deserts are wonderful for meditation. Deserts are places where old vibrations are being purified. The Sahara Desert used to be rich with greenery. Now it's vast stretches of sand. This is nature's process of purifying the earth. But in the desert, it's a wonderful place to meditate because there's a real feeling of peace there. Om is very loud there. Desert, I would recommend, is a place to go. But many people cannot do that. Is yoga excluded from them? Or are they excluded from yoga? No. You can be these things, you can do these things, if first of all you understand that your own body is your temple, your heart is your hermitage. The more you live inwardly. And so this becomes finally a matter of general attitude and practice. Even when you are with other people, feel that you are in yourself. Don't feel that you're out there with them. Always remember to do everything that you do it from your center. And when people try to get you excited and so on, just deal from your center. You'll find in time that you don't get upset if they insult you. You don't get upset or pleased if they praise you. You find there's a certain part of you that, I know before I met my guru, there was a period there where I felt that I wasn't in this body. I was watching my body doing what it did. Well, this is something I probably incorporated on a deeper level into myself, but then it was literally as if I was watching myself doing these things. I do it in another way now, but I watch from my own center, which is in the heart. And the more you can do that, the more you find that the way they act doesn't touch you, and you are in silence. You're withdrawn from in a crowd of people. You don't have to be involved in that. You can be in yourself, looking at it or not looking at it. And so wherever you go, take your hermitage with you. Krishna is telling people above all to seek that inner hermitage of the heart. Yes, it's good to go into solitary places. Certainly it will help you. But sometimes you need to sharpen a knife, you have to have some abrasive that will wear the metal down to that fine point where it will be sharp and you can use it effectively. So sometimes the company of other people, it may be abrasive, but it can also help you. So don't feel that whatever circumstances your karma has given you, don't feel that you are unfortunate. Everything can be it can be turned to good fortune if you try to understand it. If people do irritate you, then try to bring yourself to that point where you won't be irritated. You have to become strong in yourself. God is not found by weaklings. And the more you can develop this inner strength, the more you will be able to stand, as my guru put it, unshaken amidst the crash of breaking worlds. This is a great state to come into. Because people read the newspapers, oh my God, this happened, oh my God, that happened. And they keep reacting. And somebody next door runs away from home, and everybody's shouting like this. Why get caught up in other people's chatter? Be calm. Know that after all, everything in the end, the ocean level does not change, even though the waves go very high. The ocean level is the same. For every high wave, there is a depressing trough, equally balancing. So don't be involved in the ups and downs of life. Find your hermitage inside. If you can go to a solitary place, fine. If you cannot, then find that solitary place in yourself. Here's a little trick that can help you. If you live on a noisy street, get one of those machines that give you the sound of waves. I know that at the lake shrine that my guru acquired and developed near Pacific Palisades in California, that there was a lot of noise of traffic coming down Sunset Boulevard, going all the way around one side of it and then down to the ocean. But there was a little depressed garden there where there was a fountain, a little waterfall. And I would sit there and I would hear this waterfall, and that single sound canceled out the others. You'll find even when you're in a noisy neighborhood, if you have that kind of continuous sound, it doesn't suddenly shock you this way. You just have that continuous sound you can withdraw more easily into yourself. So they have these sound machines to help you to get to sleep at night, for example. It could help you also in your meditation. If there are people shouting in your neighborhood and so on. I went to one yogi in Howrah who had so much people in his neighborhood. It was really very distracting. But somehow he managed it. you can manage it too, wherever you live. Just, this is a physical way. The other way is mentally to tune out. I also have earplugs. You can put earplugs in your ears and not hear. But in some way or another, first of all with attitude, secondly in some physical way, if you can't live in the country, as Krishna says, then live in yourself in the city. Even a prison can be a place of joy. There's the story of Benvenuto Cellini, a great Italian sculptor of some centuries ago. The Pope didn't pay him, and he would refuse to do any more work for the Pope until the Pope did pay him. So the Pope threw him in a dungeon. And in this dungeon he had rats running around. He had only enough light to read by for 1 hour. And he had very little food. And so he spent his whole time thinking of God. And later he wrote, if you want to know what bliss is, then arrange to be thrown into a dungeon with rats, and he went on dampness, he never got dry. He gave all those negative conditions, and he said, think of God, and you will find bliss always. So he had a certain nostalgia for that environment because it made him think of God. For him, there was nothing else to think about. He was not a really spiritual man, but still he found this bliss. So you will find the more you give your heart to God, and in even very noisy environments, take the name of God and do these physical things that also can help you. You can have your own distant cave and be meditating in the midst of all kinds of turmoil. Live in yourself. That will be your hermitage. Joy to you.